Attention! The following video may contain fun, humor, profanity, personal opinions, political incorrectness, and so on. If you are under the age of 18 or are easily offended by something as simple as gendered words, then I suggest you turn this video off and watch something more suited to you. Something like Sesame Street. Don't say I didn't warn you. G'day guys. Welcome to my channel. Today's video is going to cover probably one of the most important topics when it comes to radio controlled cars. And if you haven't figured it out from the title, it's all about maintenance on your radio controlled car. Now, this video is going to be mainly focused at nitro cars, nitro powered cars, but it's going to be relative. Most of the topics are going to be relative to both nitro and electric, regardless of whether it's on-road or off-road. The reason why I'm doing this video is maintenance seems to be something that is overlooked with radio control cars. I've noticed with model airplanes and helicopters, maintenance doesn't seem to be as much of an issue as cars. I don't know what it is. And it's something I've seen time and time again. And I notice it too when if I'm at the car club for a race day. I notice it when you have a new member will come. They've had cars and they've mucked around with them, but they want to try racing, and they quite often come up to me with an issue with the car. And it quite often plays out something like this. Hey mate, you reckon you could have a look at my car? I've got a bit of an issue with it. Sure mate, pass it here, I'll have a look at it. Oh, thanks man. So, what's wrong with the car? Yeah, I can't get it started for some reason. It was working fine the last time I was running it. So when did you run it last? Yeah, ran it about 2-3 years ago maybe, and I just put it in the garage. It's just been sitting there ever since. I see. Alright, well, let's see. Let's have a look at this. Well, it looks like your engine is seized, and your air filter is really dirty. I mean, when was the last time you replaced it? Oh, that's the air filter that came with it. I thought, keep it as original as possible, maintain its value and that. And I kid you not, guys, I have lost count over the past 15, almost 20 years in this hobby, the amount of times people have come up to me, and that's basically how it's played out. I probably exaggerated a little bit with maintaining the value of the air filter, but you know what I mean. It's just used and abused. And unfortunately, especially with a nitro car, when you neglect it, that's when things go wrong. And that's when you get people going, oh, nitro sucks, and blah, blah, blah. So, what we're going to do, guys, is we're going to go down to the into the work shed, and we're going to go over how to maintain your car. Alright guys, so we have our buggy here, and it's funny, when I did that little skit, I haven't used this buggy in a while, and it's just been stored away. So I thought to myself, well, I better give it a bit of a run, get a little bit of dirt on it, and go from there. So gave it a bit of a run, it's got a little bit of dirt on it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go over what to do when doing some maintenance. So apart from your car, what we will need, so a few basic things for doing this. Need a brush, some basic tools, some after-run oil, I will explain that if you're new to nitro, some air filter oil, and we will need a glow plug wrench. Now, when it comes to maintenance, this preventative maintenance is basically what will help keep your car going for a long time. So we'll take the shell off. So for maintenance, one of the first things I'll do is, after I finish running, is I'll make sure both the tank and the engine are dry. So if there's a little bit of fuel left in the tank, run it through, run it completely dry. Never leave fuel in the tank or your engine, because model engine fuel is a methanol based fuel. Its primary ignition source is methanol, and methanol absorbs moisture or attracts moisture, and moisture and metal do not mix. It causes rust. So when you are finished with that, make sure the engine is completely dry, and then once we've done that, what you will want to do is, with a small brush, clean around in there if there's any dirt, because what we're going to do next is take the glow plug out. And what we'll do is take the plug out. Now this is an old plug, and always make sure that your copper ring is down the bottom there or around the plug. This is if you're using a standard plug. And we will put a little bit of after-run oil in. Now, after-run oil, everyone has their methods for, or has their own after-run oil. I use Dextron 3 automatic transmission fluid. Some people will use a mixture of transmission fluid and tool oil. You can buy pre-made after-run oil from your local hobby shop. There's really some people even use straight engine oil, say for instance two-stroke engine oil, or general like 20W50 engine oil, like mineral oil. But the whole idea is after-run oil helps prevent corrosion, and if you're using fuel that has castor oil in it, whether it's straight castor oil or a little bit of castor oil, when it goes off, it goes like gel, and it can gum up the bearings. So after-run oil, a little bit down the plug hole, and then slowly pull the pull starter, or if it's a bump start engine, just put it on the bump starter and just give it a few hits. Be careful with a bump start engine, because obviously it's designed to spin really fast to start the engine, so you don't, when it's
spinning fast, you might get some after-on oil get splashed back into your face, so just be careful with that. But just give it a little bit of a pull, make sure it's coating the piston and sleeve, and as it make sure it pushes that oil through the ports on the sleeve, so it goes down and coats the bearings and the conrod and so forth, just to help protect it. So once we've done that, we will put our plug back in. Now, like I said, this is an old plug. Don't use a good plug. So if you have a good plug in the engine, take it out and put an old or a dead plug in, because sometimes the after-on oil can cause the glow plug to deteriorate. Now, so we've done that, and also make sure, have a look inside, make sure that your tank is as dry, as empty as possible. It's going to be impossible to get all the fuel out, but make sure that the tank and the engine are dry and so forth. Next thing we're going to do is clean our air filter. Now, one of the things, you can clean the air filter, but honestly guys, what I personally recommend you are better to do, or better off doing, is replacing the air filter. Like with a car, they usually, like a real car, they have a paper based air filter. You just take the element out, chuck it, put a new one in, and then off you go. So what I like to do is I like to have some pre-oiled air filters on standby. So what we'll do is, I'll have to do this off camera, but what we'll do is we'll undo the screws and we'll replace the air filter with a good one. Alright guys, so got the new filter element in. Now, I know some of you will probably drop a comment saying, hey look, just clean the air filter. I do agree, you can clean the air filter. I used to do it when I was starting out. The problem, one thing I don't really like about cleaning an air filter is when you're cleaning it, whether it be with simple green, soapy water, even model engine fuel, because the model engine fuel can help break down the air filter oil to help flush it out. The one thing I don't really like is when you're cleaning it, you're working that dirt through the element. And when you're working it through the element, you're essentially pushing it further in. So then what's going to happen, and also too, the foam can deteriorate. And I will show you too, because as you can see, as I was pulling off the element, the outer element, you can see it broke. So what's going to happen is, if you're continuing to clean that filter element, particles, loose particles, even foam particles, can get sucked into the engine, and that's going to go through your engine, and then you're going to end up grenading it. So honestly guys, for the sake of a couple of dollars or pounds or euros, whatever your currency is, it's best to, me personally, I believe it's best to just replace the air filter element, and it saves you having a grenaded engine and an expensive paperweight. So that's that bit done. Now, as you can see, we've got some filth. It's dirty. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the engine out and the tank out, and I'm also going to take the radio tray out off camera. And what we're going to do, also take the wheels off, is we're going to clean the buggy. And that way we're getting all the dirt off it, and we have a chance to inspect the buggy, see if there's any damage, anything needs to be replaced or whatever. So give me a moment, guys, and with the magic of editing, this car's going to be disassembled. Okay, so we have the buggy stripped down to basically bare chassis, I guess you could say. So I've taken the engine and tank out, and the radio, all the electronics out, because obviously we don't want them getting damaged from water. Because what we're going to do now is we're going to clean it. Now, some people have their methods for cleaning. Some use WD-40, some use degreaser. I personally like to use Simple Green. And what you will need is a brush for doing this. So basically what you'll want to do, because I'm going to do this off camera, you spray it with your cleaner, give it a good brush around and scrub, and hose it off. And then what I will do after I've done that is I will let it dry, and then I will give it a hit with some WD-40, and I will spray the WD-40 like in the joints, in the bearings and so forth, because you don't want the bearings to lose any lubrication, because the you know, your cleaner is a cleaner, gets rid of any muck or grease. So, and oil is a lubricant, and grease and that is a lubricant, so you don't want to lose that, so you'll have to re-lubricate those areas. So like I said, I'll do this off camera, and I will be back. And well, before I stop and do the cleaning, same thing applies to your engine and your fuel tank. As you can see, the fuel tank is dirty and the engine's got some dirt on it. With your radio, with your like electronics and so forth, I don't necessarily recommend spraying any solvents on it. I just like to give it a dry clean with a brush to get any muck off it with an old toothbrush. So, because you don't want your servos or your receiver to get wet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean everything, and we'll be back. Alright guys, so cleaned the chassis, we've cleaned the tank, the engine, and the radio gear. Now, before I continue, if you can hear some weird noise going on, it's currently raining outside. I'm hoping it's just going to be a light drizzle, because when it really rains in this shed, it sounds like a tornado going through. So sorry if the audio comes out a little bit strange. Anyway, so what now, the next thing to do is some WD-40. Now, generally with WD-40, it is a good lubricant, and it's also good for preventing rust. As you can see here, possibly see, there's a little bit of rust on the turnbuckles and so forth. This is a very old buggy, and it's just something that I have for when my nephew comes, and we can have a muck around with it, because I don't really want I don't want him messing around with my good stuff. So what we're going to do, guys, now is with some WD-40, give it a bit of a spray in areas where you got bearings. That doesn't have to be a perfect spray, just so that the WD can get in to those areas. Same around here. Now you want to get it inside there. Doesn't matter if the brake rotors get a little bit of WD on them, that'll dissipate after a bit. You might find that you have a little bit of brake slippage at first, but it'll wear off. And same in there. We do the same for the CVDs. Oop. It's a spurt up. And just the general areas where you got metal, you don't want any corrosion on the moving parts. And what this will do is this will just protect the parts, especially the parts that it's metal to metal contact and they wear and so forth. It'll just protect them from any damage, and it'll also prevent rust. So I'll do this a bit more of this off camera. Then what we'll do is we'll come back to an assembled buggy. Alright, so now the buggy is all put back together. Now, for the record, I haven't connected the steering link to the steering, obviously, and I haven't connected the throttle yet. I will connect them once I've finished with my maintenance. So what we do now, so everything's back together and you want to inspect everything, and you'll want to go over things like bearings, do they move, and you want to turn it and see if things turn freely, and you want to see if there's anything binding, because when things bind or when things are starting to seize or go sloppy, for instance, it's a bit hard to repair certain things on this buggy, one being its age and the fact that it's hard to get parts for. However, you can make do with what you've got. So you want to see if things are binding, if things move freely, which they are, and that's nice there on the steering. And you want to move your suspension, so we'll bring it, and you want to inspect things like the shock shafts to see if they're bent and that. But as you can see here, this is moving nicely, and we'll bring it around and have a look at the back here. Same thing, see if it moves freely and that, and see if there's any slop in the bearings and the hubs, and see if there's any slop, which is, it's fine. And again, same thing, check the suspension, and as you can see, the sway bar is working as it should because it's lifting the left arm as I'm compressing the right arm, so there's nothing binding in there. It's working as it should. And what you also want to do now is go over all the screws and so forth. So in this case, like I said, this buggy is old, so it uses Phillips head screws, so you just go over all the screws. It's a bit hard to do this one-handed while I'm holding the camera, but you want to go over, make sure all the screws are not so much super tight, but they're tight, they haven't worked loose and so forth. Give it a little turn, put a little bit of load on it. Yep, that's tight. Yep, that's good. That's good. And essentially, really, I mean, if there are no visible broken parts on your buggy or your car or whatever you might have, that essentially is maintenance on your buggy or car. And this might take you maybe a couple of hours to pull it apart, clean it, inspect it. But if you takes that time out to go over it, check it, and so forth, in theory, you should have many years of trouble-free running. And honestly, guys, that's really all that is needed. Just some TLC, because like, you wouldn't treat your real car like this. Just shot it in the garage, run it, and then wonder why one day you go to turn the key and it's making a god-awful noise. Well, you wouldn't do that with a real car. So it's the same principle with this. You wouldn't do that with this. Take your time out, maintain it, check it, inspect it, replace anything that's possibly broken or missing, and that's all that needs to be done, guys. So if you like this video, guys, please don't hesitate to give it a thumbs up. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to comment down below. I will do my best to answer your questions. And in the meantime, guys, enjoy your hobby and cheers.